The voicemail came at 6:47 on a Thursday morning and I almost didn't listen to it. My sister Becca's voice was bright and practiced the way it gets when she's performing warmth rather than feeling it. She said the grand opening of Linden & Co. had been pushed back indefinitely. She said there were permit complications, a zoning issue, something about the fire inspection not clearing in time. She said not to bother driving out. She said she would call me when things were sorted. She did not say, "I love you" at the end, which was not unusual. But she also did not say thank you, which was. I had given Becca $60,000 14 months earlier. My name is Lauren. I was 31 that October, a licensed occupational therapist with a small private practice in Raleigh. And I had spent 3 years watching my younger sister build toward the thing she said she had always wanted, a boutique home goods store with a workshop space in the back where she could teach candle making and macrame to women who needed somewhere to be on a Saturday afternoon. I believed in it. More than that, I believed in her. I pulled the $60,000 from the savings account I had been adding to since I was 22. The one I had promised myself was for a house someday. And I wired it to her business account with a contract we had drafted together that gave me a 15% stake in the business and my name on the founding documents. What I did not know, that Thursday morning when I stood in my kitchen listening to the voicemail twice, was that the grand opening had not been pushed back at all. It was happening in 4 hours. My best friend Danny called me at 7:15. She had seen the Instagram post. Becca had put it up at midnight. Golden balloons, a chalk sign with the store name in careful handwriting, a photograph of the storefront on Elm Street that I had visited exactly once during construction before Becca had started finding reasons for me not to come by. The caption said, "Opening Day." The caption said, "Come celebrate." The caption tagged my brother-in-law Marcus and my mother and 3 of Becca's friends from college. It did not tag me. It did not mention me at all. Danny's voice was careful in the way that means she already knows something is wrong and she is trying to give me the information without also handing me the grief. She read me the caption. She asked if I was okay. I told her I was going to call Becca. She told me to wait. I did not wait. Becca picked up on the 4th ring with the particular energy of someone who has been expecting a call and has decided in advance how to handle it. She said Lauren before I could speak. She said she had been meaning to reach out. She said things had moved faster than expected and there had been so much to coordinate and she had not wanted to stress me out with the details because she knew how busy I was with my own practice and honestly the opening was really just a soft launch, nothing formal. More of a friends and family thing, and she had figured I would understand. I asked her about my name on the founding documents. There was a pause. She said that there had been some restructuring. She said Marcus had taken on a more active operational role, and they had worked with an attorney to simplify the ownership structure, and it had just made more sense for the business to reflect the people who were doing the day-to-day work. She said she had intended to talk to me about it. She said the word intended twice in the same sentence. I asked her when this restructuring had happened. She said a few months ago. I asked her what had happened to the 15% stake I had been given in writing. She said Lauren in a voice that meant she was about to explain something to me as though I were being unreasonable and I hung up. I sat down on the floor of my kitchen, which is not something I do, and I stayed there for approximately 4 minutes. Then I got up, made coffee, and called Danny back. Danny is a paralegal at a firm in Durham that handles small business disputes among other things. She is not my attorney and she is careful to say so. But she knows exactly which questions to ask, and she asks them without softening them in ways that would make the answers easier to avoid. She asked me whether I had a signed copy of the original operating agreement. I did. She asked whether the $60,000 had been wired directly from my personal account to a business account in Becca's name. It had. She asked whether I had any email or text communication confirming my equity stake after the wire transfer. I did, because Becca had sent me a message 6 days after the wire that said, "Everything is official, you're in. I could not have done this without you." Followed by 3 heart emojis. Danny was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I think you need to talk to an actual attorney today, and I think you should not contact Becca again until you do." I contacted my mother instead, which in retrospect was the wrong order of operations. My mother's name is Patricia, and she lives 20 minutes from Becca, and has always held a very specific version of both of her daughters in her mind that does not update easily with new information. In her version, Becca is the creative one, the one who needs protecting, the one whose sensitivity is a kind of gift that requires careful handling by the people around her. In her version, I am the capable one, the self-sufficient one, the one who landed on her feet so reliably that it had stopped occurring to anyone to ask whether the landing had hurt. My mother picked up on the second ring. I told her what Becca had said. I told her about the restructuring. I told her that my name had apparently been removed from the founding documents without my knowledge or consent. My mother said, "Lauren, I know this is hard." I waited. She said that Becca had been under enormous pressure. She said that Marcus had really stepped up, and sometimes when a business partner steps up, it changes the structure of things. She said that $60,000 was a lot of money and she understood why I was upset. But that Becca was her daughter and she had to believe that Becca would do right by me eventually, and that the opening had been such a stressful time. And maybe this wasn't the moment to push. I asked her when she had found out about the restructuring. There was a pause that lasted just slightly too long. She said she had known there were some changes happening. I asked her how long she had known. She said a few months, Lauren, and that she had encouraged Becca to talk to me, but that she had not wanted to get in the middle of it. I sat with that for a moment. A few months. My mother had known for a few months that my equity stake had been dissolved and my name removed from the business I had funded, and she had decided not to get in the middle of it. She had come to my apartment for dinner 6 weeks ago. She had asked about my practice, my patients, whether I was seeing anyone. She had not mentioned it. I thanked her for her time in a voice I barely recognized and ended the call. The attorney Danny referred me to was named Grace Okafor, and she had an opening that afternoon because a deposition had been pushed. I brought the original operating agreement, the wire transfer confirmation, the email thread from the 14 months of building, and the screenshot Danny had saved of the Instagram post with the timestamp. I also brought the text message with the 3 heart emojis because something told me it was going to matter. Grace read through everything without speaking. When she was done, she set the documents down and looked at me with the direct calm of someone who has seen worse and is not going to pretend otherwise. She said that what had been done was not clean. She said that removing a documented equity holder from a founding agreement without written consent and without compensating them for the value of their stake was not a gray area legally. She said that the text message combined with the wire transfer record was useful. She asked whether I wanted to pursue recovery of the investment, the equity stake, or both. I said both. She said there was one more thing I should understand before we moved forward. She said that in cases like this where the restructuring had been done informally and the other party had not anticipated being challenged, the element of surprise was meaningful. She said that if Becca or Marcus learned I was pursuing legal action before the documentation was in place, they might move assets or attempt to further formalize the restructuring in ways that would complicate the recovery. She said the most effective thing I could do right now was nothing visible. I asked her what nothing visible looked like. She said it looked like attending the opening. I drove to Elm Street at 11 that morning and parked half a block down. The storefront was prettier than I had imagined from the construction photos. Warm wood lettering above the door, potted eucalyptus on either side of the entrance, white curtains in the window that I could see shifting slightly from the HVAC. There was a small crowd on the sidewalk, most of them women around Becca's age, several of them holding the branded tote bags that I recognized from the marketing deck Becca had sent me 11 months ago when she had asked for my feedback on the brand identity. I had given her feedback for 6 hours over a weekend. I went inside. Becca saw me from across the room, and the expression that crossed her face lasted only a moment before the practiced warmth came back up. But I had seen it. It was the expression of someone recalculating. She came toward me with her arms open and said, "Lauren, you came," as though I were a pleasant surprise at a party she had not deliberately excluded me from, and I hugged her back because Grace had told me nothing visible and I understood what that meant. I told her the store was beautiful. I told her she had done an incredible job. I meant both things, which made it harder and easier at the same time. Marcus was near the workshop space in the back, talking to a man I didn't recognize. He nodded at me across the room with the particular careful friendliness of someone who is not sure how much I know. I smiled back. My mother arrived at noon. She looked at me with an expression I can only describe as relief and dread in equal measure. The expression of someone who had been hoping to avoid an outcome and was not yet sure they had succeeded. She kissed my cheek and said, "I'm glad you're here," which was the most honest thing she had said to me in months, and I think she knew it. I stayed for 2 hours. I spoke to Becca's friends. I admired the inventory. I bought a $70 candle, which felt like the correct absurdity for the occasion. When I left, I texted Becca a single message. "The store is everything you said it would be." She replied with a heart. Grace filed the initial documentation 4 days later. The cease and desist arrived at the store on a Tuesday. Danny told me afterward that Marcus had been the one to receive it, that he had called Becca from the back room, and that the sound had been audible from the workshop where one of Becca's employees had been restocking supplies. I was not there for any of it. I was in a session with a patient doing the work I had always done, and I found out through a text from a number I didn't recognize until I realized it was a cousin I had not spoken to in 2 years, asking me what was going on with Becca. What followed was a month of noise. Becca called 11 times in the first 4 days, which I know because I counted. My mother called less often but with a quality of urgency that suggested she had appointed herself an intermediary, which was a role she had always preferred to the harder one. There was a message sent through a family group chat that had been dormant for 8 months, posted by an aunt who had clearly received only Becca's version of events, expressing concern about family unity and the importance of handling things privately. I did not respond to the group chat. I let Grace respond to everything that required a response. What Becca and Marcus had done, when Grace had finished mapping it, was this. 7 months after I wired the money, Marcus had brought in a different attorney than the one Becca and I had used together, and they had filed an amended operating agreement that restructured the business as a 2-person LLC between Becca and Marcus, effectively eliminating my stake. The new document had been filed with the state. My name did not appear in it. The $60,000 was reclassified in their internal records as a personal loan from a family member, unsecured, with no repayment schedule. They had not told me. They had not offered to buy out my stake. They had not asked my consent. For 7 months they had continued to send me occasional updates about the business, continued to let me believe I was a part of it, and continued to use the store's growing social media following, which I had helped them build by sharing it to my own audience of several thousand people, while my name existed nowhere in any official document. Grace said it quietly and precisely. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a decision. The mediation was held on a Wednesday in a conference room that had the particular neutrality of spaces designed to contain difficult things. Becca came with Marcus and an attorney. I came with Grace. My mother was not there, which I had requested, and which Grace had supported. Becca looked at me once when she came in, a long look, and I understood something in it that I had been assembling slowly over the past month. She had not expected me to fight. She had made a calculation somewhere along the way that I was the sister who absorbed things, the one who managed, the one who found a way to be okay without requiring too much from the people around her. And she had applied that calculation to $60,000 and the legal documentation of a business and apparently found it sound. It had not been sound. The mediation took most of the day. I will not reconstruct it detail by detail, but some of it belongs to a version of my relationship with my sister that I am still trying to understand. What I will say is that by mid-afternoon, after Marcus's attorney had tried 3 different framings of the word loan and Grace had responded to each of them with documentation that made the framing untenable, Becca stopped looking at Marcus and started looking at her own hands. The settlement returned my full $60,000 with interest calculated from the date of the wire. It restored my 15% equity stake in the business in writing, filed correctly with the state this time. It included a clause that required my written consent for any future restructuring that affected my stake. Marcus signed first. Becca signed last. She did not look at me when she signed. Afterward, in the parking lot, Grace shook my hand and told me I had handled it well. Danny was waiting in the car 2 rows over, and when I got in, she handed me a coffee she had kept warm in a thermos for 3 hours and did not say anything for a full minute, which is exactly what I needed. I did not call my mother that evening. I sent her a message that said the matter has been resolved legally and I need some time. She replied with, "Okay," and then a minute later, with, "I love you," and I read both messages and set my phone face down on the nightstand. The thing about being the capable one is that it is a role that gets assigned to you, not one you apply for, and once it is assigned, the people who assigned it begin to treat your capability as a resource rather than a quality. My $60,000 had felt to Becca, I think, less like a gift or an investment, and more like a natural consequence of who I was. The sister who had savings, the sister who would stable, the sister who could absorb a loss if it came to that. She had not thought of it as theft, maybe. She had thought of it as allocation. That is the thing I have spent the most time sitting with. There is a corner table at a coffee shop near my practice where I go on Saturday mornings when I do not have early patients. The owner knows my order. The light comes through the east window at a specific angle around 9 o'clock that makes the whole room feel like it is running slightly outside of ordinary time. I bring a book I may or may not open. I sit with my coffee and I let myself exist in a space that belongs to no one's version of me except my own. I have a 15% stake in a business my sister built with my money, which is documented and legally protected and which I check on quarterly with the same careful attention I give to everything I have built. Becca and I have spoken twice since the mediation. Briefly, in the way of people who are relearning the dimensions of a relationship after one of them has changed shape. My mother calls every Sunday and I answer most of the time. The $60,000 I recovered sits back in the savings account. I have not decided yet what it is for. There is a house a few streets from the coffee shop that has been for sale for 3 weeks. I have walked past it 4 times. It has a porch that faces west, and a garden in the front that has clearly been tended by someone who cared about it. I have not gone inside yet. But I have been thinking about what it would mean to own something that is entirely yours. Something no one else can restructure while you are not in the room. Something where your name appears on every document correctly from the beginning. I think I am almost ready to go see it. If you have ever been the person your family treats as a resource rather than a person, what was the moment you finally made them understand the difference?